So welcome all of you, near and far. It's a joy to be with you again and to affirm that each of us is here, dwelling largely in solitude, largely in silence, in our own cabin, on our own path. I think it's a wonderful thing that we are gathering every 6 weeks to reaffirm that we're not simply a bunch of individuals who happen to be in the same place, but we are a community, we are a sangha, and we're here to look after each other, right? And that's true also in a different way for all of us together by way of the internet, using the wonders of modern technology. So before we turn to the next Dharma talk, which is now a series, let's just pause for a couple of minutes, quietly in our own way, take refuge, pondering the meaning of refuge in this and all future lifetimes, and arousing the most sublime of all motivations. I think I can't even imagine a motivation, aspiration, a promise and a vow more sublime than that of bodhicitta. So let's arouse that to the best of our ability. And with that motivation, then, we'll continue this afternoon. Wallace. From lifetime to lifetime, from this one and the next and the next, how can we gain confidence that there will be a coherence, a direction, a movement, a continuity, a meaningful continuity from lifetime to lifetime, rather than we simply happen to be born here this time and we simply happen to be born there next time? That there's really a meaning from lifetime to lifetime, a movement, a direction, and not just wandering around in circles. And before the achievement of shamatha, before reaching the Mahayana path, before even achieving uncontrived, spontaneous bodhicitta, it's these two ways of beginning with refuge. When we say, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, from now until my enlightenment, that makes a connection, right? That will still be there, because it's something, a promise, a vow, a commitment, a take and entrusting of ourselves that doesn't cease at death. Most things do, but not that. And then when it comes to bodhicitta, then in a way we can say all the more so, because you know very well from me, and I've just been passing on what I know to be true from the Dharma, that bodhicitta is not simply an aspiration, right? It's much more than an aspiration. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to the pledge. To all sentient beings made in the presence of all the Buddhas. That's big. And it's to achieve enlightenment, of course, a pledge, a commitment, a determination, a promise, a vow, an intention to achieve perfect enlightenment, above which there is nothing possible, nothing possible than perfect enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. And until we have achieved such enlightenment, then we have unfinished business. It's called leto in Tibetan. It's an unfinished business. We've committed to do something, determined, pledged to do something. But on the chance that we don't actually finish it this lifetime, then as our mental continuum carries over, that carries over with it. I've intended, I've pledged, determined to do something, I haven't finished it yet. And that will connect you in the next lifetime. With merit, with ethics, of course. To be able to continue our journey that is not just wandering around. So today now is the second in a series of Dharma talks. And so from this one and the next to the next to the next, there'll be a coherence, a progression, a connection, one leading to the next. And so to highlight that, to elucidate that, looking briefly to the past 6 weeks ago, we looked at the first 2 of 6 kinds of intelligence that I've been speaking about for some time now. The first one, of course, cognitive intelligence. The perfection of which, I would say, is bodhicitta. There's no more intelligent aspiration or determination or resolve, no more intelligent than that, a bodhicitta. As Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva, in terms of achieving your own ends, your own welfare, there's nothing more effective, nothing more intelligent than bodhicitta. And then when we look out upon the world around us, how much misery, how much suffering, how much unfulfilled desire, how much confusion and delusion. And we say, how can I help? Well, in a myriad of ways, inconceivable number of ways. But in order to be of greatest possible benefit to those around you in this lifetime and in all future lifetimes, bodhicitta, right? So we've discovered that, like the beggar who's wandering around in a garbage dump and finds a jewel. That's Shantideva's analogy, right? We found bodhicitta, we found refuge. Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. I'll come back to maybe the most frequent refrain in all of Buddha Dhamma, at least for the Indo-Tibetan tradition. What binds us all together, binds not as in constricts, but unites us all together, common ground, with everybody in this room, with the people in this nearby village, the surrounding countryside, and wherever you are. And connects us is a nice word, connects us in a meaningful way to all sentient beings. And you know what it is? All of us, human and non-human alike, religious and non-religious alike, and so on. We all want to be free of suffering. And if we're intelligent about it, we'll find out actually what are the causes of suffering, and not just simply wish to be free of the result, but get down to it with intelligence and recognize what are the causes of suffering, and then we wish to be free. And we all want to have happiness, pleasure, joy, satisfaction. But then once again, using our intelligence, and His Holiness often points to the frontal cortex here, using our brains. It's not enough just to want to be happiness. Do you know what actually makes you happy? Are you cognitively intelligent? Do you know what actually makes you unhappy? Are you cognitively intelligent? So the way the cookie crumbles, the pie is cut up in modernity. It's often cut up between religious people and non-religious people, right? Believers and non-believers. I never buy that. I haven't bought it for a long time. Materialists are believers. Atheists are believers. Communists are believers. Gophers, I'm not so sure. But all of us who are intelligent, we believe in something that we don't know. You can't get through life without believing in things you don't know. You just have to, but I don't know. Will I get hit by a truck today if I cross the street? I don't know. So that very first point of it's a given. Because we are conscious, we are sentient. And we are sentient means that we don't want to suffer and we do want to find pleasure. That's sentient. Conscious, just we're aware. One could imagine a robot they don't exist, but we can imagine a robot that is conscious but has no emotions. And that comes up in science fiction, right? Oh, I have no emotions, but I'm very intelligent, much smarter than you are, says Data. The real divide, to my mind, is not the religious and the not religious, certainly not the believers and the non-believers, because there aren't any non-believers unless they're just, vegetative. The real difference is cognitively intelligent and cognitively unintelligent. We want to find happiness. Let's just stick with that one. And then we, as I heard one character recently say, go out into the world and find out what makes you happy. As if that's where your happiness lies. Living in the right place, the right job, the right romantic partner, the right kids, make sure you choose well, and so forth. The kids that will make you happy. Those kids. Don't get the other kind. Get the good kids that will make the parents happy. They'll just, Mom and Dad, I just love you, and I'm 18, and I've loved you all the way through. I just love you so much. Get that kind. They're much better. The ones that, rather than the ones that get the teenagers, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Don't get that kind. Get the good kind. Cognitively intelligent. The cognitively unintelligent bet their lives, and in a way all future lives, in the pursuit of hedonia. What out there will make me happy? How much money would it be? How much prestige would it be? How much power, influence would it be? How much sensual pleasures would it be? Who would make me happy? What kind of job will make me happy? What kind of education? And I look at that. And of course, that's what our children are taught in schools pretty much everywhere. Be a success. Get into the good schools. Get a good job. Find the right spouse. Have a good family. And don't get sick, because that's really a bummer. Whenever we're going out for happiness, in the pursuit of hedonia, we're gamblers. We're gamblers. You get into a certain college, is it going to make you happy or not? Not necessarily. You get a certain job, you start a business, you become an employee someplace. Will it make you happy? No telling. You find a romantic partner, half of which relationships break up, at least in the United States, not because it was so happy. And kids often don't really make their parents all that happy. And so it's a gamble. Every time we go out, it's a gamble. In a world that's permeated by change, every moment, change, 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 much of it unpredictable. And it's a gamble. But if we think of samsara, the great circle of samsara, the cycle of samsara, think of it as a casino. Or think of it as a roulette wheel. And let's go out for another spin. And let's go out and see another casino and let's bet. Let's put our chips down on the roulette wheel. Go black, go 25. And then we just hope for the best. And fear the worst. But there's a great saying from Las Vegas, I think. It's pretty universal. The house always wins. Gamble long enough with a roulette wheel, because it's tilted just enough that if you play long enough, you'll wind up with nothing, and the house will have everything. The house always wins. In the great casino of samsara, the house always wins. Whatever you acquire, you will lose it. You'll lose it all. Every bit. Because death is the great closing of the casino. Death takes away everything. And before that, you have aging and sickness to deal with, which is generally not all that pleasant. So everybody who's looking outwards for happiness, you're gambling, but you're gambling in a house where it ends invariably with aging, sickness, and death. So you'll never win. You'll get a lucky number here and a lucky number there, but just play long enough, and you always lose everything. And you're back to nothing. people who practice Dharma, and I'm thinking especially Buddha Dharma, because that's the one I know, we are prioritizing. It's crucial. What's the difference between Dharma practitioners not? We are prioritizing the cultivation of genuine well-being over the priority of the pursuit of hedonia. We want to have good food, we want to have a nice place to live, we'd like to have friendly relationships. If it's a romantic relationship, we want that to be fruitful and meaningful and joyful. We want that. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But the cultivation of eudaimonia is the practice of Dharma. And the thing about the cultivation of eudaimonia, the thing about practicing Dharma, is it's not a gamble. If you pause for one moment on arousing meaningful motivation, be it renunciation, spirit of emergence, or bodhicitta, and you breathe in and breathe out, that was virtue. That's an investment. You've just invested a breath in and a breath out, and it's virtuous. And there's no gamble there. Whether you achieve shamatha in this lifetime or not, we can't tell. But it's not a gamble. It's an investment. So cognitive intelligence means being smart about embracing desires, intentions, ideals, motivations, aspirations, and goals that are rooted in reality and that will actually lead you on the path to your own fulfillment. That's cognitive intelligence. And the rest is all gambling. Or it's doing things really unwholesome for the short-term gain, doing something very like cheating, robbing, killing, and so forth, that you think in the short term this turn out well. Maybe it does, hedonically. You can cheat and get away with it for a while. But it never turns out well in the end. So cognitive intelligence, it's bodhicitta, is the perfection of that. And just to add briefly, something you know, but it's so crucial, sometimes we forget about it. Bodhicitta, the determination to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. If it's not rooted in renunciation or a spirit of definite emergence, then it's like a plant with no root system. You can just flick it and it just falls right over. And what brings about the spirit of emergence? It's a complete disillusionment with the pursuit of hedonia, thinking it's going to turn out well in the end, because it never ever does in the end. And the cultivation of this spirit of emergence is twofold. That's why I don't really care for renunciation, because one can renounce something. Okay, I won't smoke anymore. I'm renouncing smoking. But that just means giving up something, renouncing something. Well, the great existentialists, the French like Sartre, Camus, and so forth, they were great at renunciation, but they had no vision of what genuine well-being was. They just knew that life kind of sucks. But that's not a direction. That's just a moving away from, not a moving towards. In a Buddha Dharma, yes, it's seeing the ubiquitous dissatisfaction that permeates samsara and the pursuit of hedonic well-being, but then it has an orientation from and to. And to is this intuition, this hope, this belief, this faith that freedom is possible. Freedom is possible. Liberation is possible. Perfect enlightenment is possible. And have it with that distinction, that recognition, a definite emergence away from samsara and towards nirvana. Okay, now you can start practicing Dharma. That is not just being mindful or just reciting a mantra or doing some ritual. It's a very open question whether that's Dharma at all, whether there's any virtue there at all. So cognitive, moving on. I have some pretty good notes today. I think I want to get to them. But you want to be an investor or a gambler, knowing that the house always wins. So if you're a gambler, you're cognitively unintelligent, because it will never turn out well in the long run, ever. Whereas even one moment of an act of kindness, of generosity, of loving kindness, of warmth, of friendliness, that's already good. You don't have to wait to see how it turns out. It's already a virtue. The seeds are already sown for something that will turn out well. This is crucial. So the four thoughts to turn the mind, 4 revolutions in outlook. It is drenching, saturating our minds in these shifts of perspective. that really turn one to Dharma. And so Yangshan and I have come with that translation for revolutions in outlook. It's nice. That's kind of a poetic aspect to it, revolution in outlook. But what it is, very simply put, with no poetry, no analogy, anything like that, it's a real reversal. It's an about face, 180 degrees, not just a turning. It's a turning about, a total reversal of a way of viewing our lives. Well, I'm human. What else would I be? You know, I mean, I couldn't be anything else. It wouldn't be Alan. It wouldn't be me. Of course I'm human. Taking it for granted entirely. Plenty of time to kill. And so big deal. So I'm a primate, so big deal. And turning that radically around, 100%, 90 degrees. Precious human rebirth. Death, not coming soon. I'm quite sure I'm in good health. And I haven't gotten COVID. I'm sure I won't get COVID. Unless, like a friend of mine who was doing shopping and walked down the aisle, a person was walking the other way, and she came into his breath stream and got COVID. Oh, I didn't see that coming. So death is far away. And after all, when you're dead, you're just dead. What's the big deal? Lights out. Not really. You got it absolutely wrong. It doesn't matter what you believe, it's absolutely wrong. The evidence is overwhelming if you know where to look. There is no escape from reality. Death can come anytime. And it can either be the end of all your hopes or the beginning of the rest of your journey. Samsara, nice places, someplace very nice. New Zealand, Tahiti, Santa Barbara. Other places not so nice. Try to find the nice places. Samsara, the ubiquitous dissatisfaction of conditioned existence. That nails it right there. And then, well, what you can get away with, then you got away with it. Ha ha. Except that that's not true. It's not true. Our actions have moral consequences. So there it is, enough. But that's cognitive intelligence. It's just being smart. Embracing ideals, desires, intentions that will really lead you to realize what you've always wanted. It has nothing to do with religious or not religious. It has to do with being smart and not being smart. And with that start, then you want to make sure that your behavior doesn't undermine your very meaningful, intelligent desires, because they can. Our behavior completely can undermine our very aspiration to find happiness, to be of suffering. So recognizing what kind of behavior is conducive to our own and others' well-being and what kind is not, and that's ethical intelligence. It doesn't come naturally. It can be learned. And that's where the Bodhisattva precepts come in, of guarding us so that we don't engage in behavior that will prove harmful. It's like having a kitchen, but in one cabinet there's a bunch of poison for whatever reason. Maybe very tasty, but you have a sign on the cabinet, this is poison, don't eat this. Not quite sure why I have this cabinet, but it's there. Don't eat this stuff. And keep a lock on it against your kids. But it's good to know how to protect, like a fence around a vegetable garden so the rabbits and deer don't eat it all up. But in the meantime, while we seek to guard our precepts, our Bodhisattva vows, then before we go into retreat, before we really start thinking deeply about meditation and so forth, how do we practice Dharma in the midst of the lives we're already leading? Maybe with children, with family, with job, and so forth and so on. Many responsibilities, many demands on our time. How do we practice then and not simply wait until we have some leisure and we can take a weekend up here at Myosamdinling or, go to some Dharma teaching, whatever. And it really comes down to, in this Mahayana context, Lojong, 7-point mind training. Just let that be your life. Embed your life in that framework. And then it will be a life of Dharma. Or if you like a larger portion, then the Bodhisattva is fantastic. Something to live for the whole life and right through death. So that was cognitive and ethical intelligence 6 weeks ago. Cognitive, okay, you're heading in the right direction. This is an aspiration that can really turn out well, and it's not a gamble. Dharma is not a gamble. It's an investment, a sure investment. and then everything else is gamble. And then lead your life so that you don't undermine your own aspirations. And then we turn to the third. First cognitive intelligence, then ethical intelligence. And then there is training of the attention. For the moment, what we attend to is reality, says William James. Our ability to attend to something, to stay focused, to sustain our focus intelligently, discerningly, is the maker and breaker of success or failure. If you can't sustain your attention, whatever it is, cooking a meal, you can burn the meal. Starting a business, you'll go bankrupt. Raising a family, your kids will turn out not well because they didn't get good parenting. Very difficult to turn out well if your parents are not good parents. Not impossible, but it's tough. And so getting an education, no attention, you can't get an education. You can't do much of anything meaningful without attention skills. And I find it mind-boggling, frankly, that Eurocentric education, which I've had a fair amount of, which has so much intelligence in it, so strong, so sharp, so informative, so helpful in many ways, has entirely overlooked, virtually without exception, the training of attention. As if it's static. Some people have ADHD, some people are more focused, some people are very focused. It's just like you're not very tall. What are you going to do? I can't give you tall pills. I can't give you exercise. Please, no, stretch here. It's amazing how static our view of human nature is when it comes to compassion, empathy. Well, some people more, some people less. What are you going to do? Attention skills, intelligence, and so forth. We have a pre-Darwinian notion of human existence, as if we're static. Pre-Darwin, species don't evolve, they're just the way God made them, or how they just showed up on the scene from materialistic causes. We have almost no notion in our most brilliant universities, in our whole education system, almost no notion of the potentials of being a human being. Almost none. The potential is become really rich, become really powerful, become really famous, succeed. And it's all hedonia. His Holiness commented on this. Modern education is entirely hedonic education. Monastic education is entirely eudaimonic. You don't see many monks, well, they don't get rich by becoming good scholars or on meditating a lot. But that wasn't the idea in the first place. So we move now today to the cultivation of attentional intelligence. So I'm taking very familiar terms and putting them together. Cognitive intelligence, I think I coined that one. Ethical intelligence, probably somebody else did, but it makes really good sense. Attentional intelligence, because we can certainly be attentionally unintelligent by attending to things that if we follow them, it will not turn out well. For the moment, what you attend to is reality. And so within the context of Dharma, cognitive intelligence, ethical, and then really turning to the cultivation of the mind, of meditation. I was just listening to a Dharma talk His Holiness gave in 1989 in Samyeling in Scotland. A wonderful talk, and speaking quite eloquent English. Tuten Jimbo was there, didn't translate a word for the whole Dharma talk, only in the Q&A. But in the midst of his wonderful Dharma talk, he emphasized it's really important to have retreat centers. Places, locations, facilities that are entirely designed so you can go there and have nothing else to do besides practice Dharma. Outside, you have all kinds of other things to do. But the folks living here, how much entertainment exactly do you have here? And how often do you go out and, do some nice entertainment, have a good meal in the town, go to the big cinema there in Crestone and see the latest movie? There's not much to do here besides enjoy the magnificent beauty of the environment. No downside to that. Have some tasty meals, that's good. Besides that, you're on your own. That's about all the hedonia you can really expect here. But eudaimonia, sky's the limit. Sky is the limit. So His Holiness emphasizing that. Really important to have retreat centers. And what does it mean to be in retreat? It's not how many hours of shamatha you do a day. How many rituals, how many mantras you recite, how many visualizations you do, how many rituals you perform. Being in retreat means you have nothing to do all day, every day, except for practice Dharma. And if that's what you're doing, you're just turning your whole life into, I'm just swimming in a current of practicing Dharma. This type of Dharma, this type, and this type, this type. But it's just filled with Dharma. Then you're in retreat. Right? Now you could do that when you're out in the world, but it's difficult. But it can be done. And so I mentioned different kinds of retreat. Very quick recap, and then we'll move on, now that we've already spent half an hour. And that is, as I just read one of the answers of Dubin Lama Karma to a question about going into retreat. And he gave, of course, as usual, the very wise counsel. When you think about going into retreat, think short. Think a short retreat, a weekend retreat, maybe a week-long retreat. If that goes well, then you might think about a month. If that goes well and you have the opportunity, you might go for 3 months. But don't plunge in and say, I'm going to go a lifelong retreat, or I'm going to do a 3-year retreat. Go in gently and see whether you can flourish. In the analogy many of you heard before, like the cat that jumps into a pool and can't swim and either sinks or just flounders on the surface, or like an elephant going into this cool pool on a hot summer day and just swishing yourself with cool water. Can you flourish in a retreat or not? I can tell you, if you really have learned how to sustain yourself on eudaimonic well-being, then you can flourish. And if you're still heavily dependent on hedonic stimulation, being in retreat will probably get really boring. And you start thinking of all the things you'd rather do and all the ways your teacher has misguided you. Because I'm so bored and it's got to be somebody's fault. This guy, probably so. So start short retreats and start with a balanced diet. Some cultivation of mindfulness, cultivation of the heart, cultivation of faith, devotion. Start with a balanced diet, a weekend retreat of a balanced diet, then longer. But that's the first type of retreat. Something where you're just cultivating eudaimonia all day long, And then you have a nice meal, or go for a lovely walk, or maybe I like to exercise, what have you. And then when you start seeing the importance of the second of the 3 higher trainings of samadhi, you start recognizing the importance of the 5th perfection, meditation, the importance of developing attentional intelligence. Then you'll start wanting to get serious about cultivating samadhi. The unification of the mind, that's what it means, samadhi. The unification of the mind. It doesn't come naturally, especially in our world, which is kind of an ADHD world altogether. But it can be trained. Something our education system has yet to discover. Attention can be trained. And it can be very good for you. And so, moving to attentional training, then the second kind of phase of being in retreat would be, all right, I'm going to a shamatha retreat, but I don't think I can live on shamatha alone for the whole retreat. 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Maybe I can do 8 hours, but then 2 or 3, 4 hours of other practices that are sweet, bring moisture and warmth and joy and meaning and really move the heart. It's good. Very good. Right? You have the plant and then you nurture it with these other practices, Guru Yoga. But then when you find you can really live happily with contentment, a sense of meaning, of fulfillment in that kind of retreat, at some point if you're very fortunate and you have the determination, the cognitive intention, having heard about shamatha, the achievement of shamatha, thinking, if I wait until I'm in my 80s or 90s, that might be too late. The brain's very old by then, and it may be difficult in real old age to develop, but 70s is still pretty good. I have 3 years of experience. 70s, not bad. I'm not going to win any Olympic races, but then I would never have anyway. But it's kind of 70 really not bad. You get the perks of old age without so much of the disadvantage. Senior citizen, 10% discounts. I really like that. 70, not bad. Really not bad. 80s can be okay. 90s tough. I've seen my father go through it. That's tough. 90s generally tough. Especially most of your friends are dead. That's kind of tough. So if you come to a point where you think life is running out, but I'm still in my 30s, not really over the hill yet. Maybe you won't, be in Major League Baseball if you're in your 30s now. But 30 is pretty good. 40 is good. 50 is good. 60 is good. and think, maybe now's the time. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's achieve shamatha. And so if you get to that point, let's do it. There's always been a possibility, but when does it become a priority? Then we have the advice of masters, most recently, Tupa Lama Karma. Before that, in my case, Gyatso Rinpoche, Yangchen Rinpoche, the list goes on and on. I've been incredibly blessed. I must have done something really, really good in my past lives. And so the culminating phase of being in retreat, in order to achieve shamatha, I'm now going to Myo Samden Ling or some other retreat center, and not just to be in retreat, but to really move on this path, the path of shamatha, and come to its culmination, and have a total new mind 2.0, just a whole evolution, a different type of mind altogether than what you had before. And so here's your platform. It's like wanting to climb Mount Everest, but you can't do that in one day up and down. No way. You have to have a base camp, maybe even two. Now you base camp, acclimate, okay, now ready for the next. Maybe you have a second base camp. And then you go to the summit. But you don't go from the bottom to the top in one day. And so to go from here to enlightenment, the perfect enlightenment of a Buddha, that's Mount Everest of spiritual aspirations. Without shamatha, you're never going to make it. Without vipassana, you'll never make it. I mean, ever. And so the culminating phase of being in retreat in order to achieve shamatha as the basis for entering and proceeding along the path of Dzogchen, specifically within the Mahayana context, entails devoting oneself to full-time practice in solitary retreat with a sole emphasis or overwhelming emphasis on shamatha, and therefore disengaging from all recitations and liturgies, and complementing one's shamatha practice primarily just with Guru Yoga, taking the four empowerments and merging one's mind with the Guru's mind. So this is the advice from those who have actually achieved shamatha. There have been people who have made it to that base camp, including in the present day. It's not ancient history. And that's how you do it. At some point, you really streamline your meditative practice. Keep your commitments. Whatever you made, of course you keep those. But then it's all for one and one for all. All of your practice is for the sake of shamatha, achieve shamatha, and everything you do after that will be with the power of shamatha. And it will be literally millions of times more effective. So I asked Lama Karma last December, just a couple of months ago, please describe, what's the way of being in retreat? If you've matured enough in your practice, you have a baseline of really getting familiar with Lojong, the Bodhisattva way of life, keeping the precepts, spending some time really getting familiar with different shamatha methods and knowing how to practice them correctly. And then you get to the point, now I really want to achieve shamatha. I said, can you describe, because he's done this, some of you know about the intensity of the retreats he's been in. And he responded this way on December 4th. These days, we can divide our practice into 4 sessions and focus on only shamatha. These days, nowadays, if you have a good environment. Sometimes when we feel a little tired, we can do virtuous practices like supplicating to the Guru, calling the Guru from afar, merging our mind with the Guru's mind, and the resting in equipoise. Sometimes we can merge our minds with the enlightened minds of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and with our own Guru's mind, and then rest in equipoise. These are probably the methods on the path that are said to be powerful, especially for beginners. The reliance on wisdom comes after the reliance on skillful means. So everything, the first 5 perfections are all skillful means. The culminating skillful means is shamatha, meditation, and then comes vipassana. So skillful means include such practices as supplicating the Guru, practicing generosity with one's body, that is physical service, visualization practice, and so on. These are helpful. However, if our minds are distracted by other activities, it is said that we must abandon these activities because shamatha is the priority. You don't give up the greater for the sense of the lesser. Shamatha is huge. And I, having heard His Holiness speak about this for decades now, as well as going way back to Geshe Wantarge 50 years ago. Nowadays, shamatha is very, very rare, but very, very few people are even trying. It's not mystery. Very few conducive environments, very few capable teachers, and very few people having the aspiration, the hope, or the confidence they might actually achieve it. Then, of course, it's going to be very rare. So that's that. So if our minds are distracted by other activities, we must abandon these activities because shamatha is the priority. Once shamatha is achieved, for whatever activities we engage in, the mind is undistracted, and with the non-separation of the post-meditation from meditative equipoise, that is most powerful. It's more powerful. In other words, and we've all been trained in this, you have the practices during formal meditation sessions, but then let it be more and more seamless as you transition off the cushion and you're cooking your meal, taking a walk, or what have you, that you're not losing the warmth of your meditation, that quality of presence, of inner stillness, of mindfulness. Let it flow seamlessly. So then after however long your break is, you come back to the cushion, it just slides right back into it. There's no abrupt discontinuity. So he continues here through introspection, samprajanya, and I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes. If you find that distraction occurs often, then as a renunciate meditator, one who's really fed up with samsara and committed to liberation, he said, if you get distracted very often, do very little reading, reciting, chanting, and writing books. Otherwise, if you engage in a lot of virtual activities, it hinders your shamatha practice. At the beginning, shamatha practice is most important. Once shamatha is well established, anything can be done with no distraction. So if we compare the mind without shamatha, ordinary mind, untrained mind, to a mind with shamatha, it's really like the difference between a flashlight and a laser. No comparison. So then in terms of the dozens of different shamatha techniques the Buddha himself taught, they're in the Pali Canon, more found in the Mahayana teachings, more found in Vajrayana teachings, more found in Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Among the 40 different methods, you've heard this before, 40 different methods, that's how important it was. 40 different methods specified, like a doctor with a pharmacopoeia. Well, you should have these kind of herbs, and you should have these and these and these, and then you need these herbs. Very specific temperament. Back in the time of the Buddha, there were some people who had a strong predisposition or proclivity for overthinking everything. Conceptualization, vikalpa. Not everybody, it seems, but some people, they just are conceptual blabbermouths. And it was just hard for them to ever shut up. And with that very conceptually agitated, active, hyperactive conceptual mind, if they try to focus on something like an image or something, they'll just get their knickers in a twist. They'll get twisted up and tightened up and then getting stressed out, and then it doesn't turn out well. So the Buddha said for those people who are very highly conceptual, you just can't turn the mind off. And he said, okay, here's one way. Mindfulness of breathing. Because it's gentle. It's really gentle. You know my favorite metaphor there, the horse whisperer. Instead of breaking the horse like a bucking bronco and kicking your spurs into it, freaking out the horse, to break it so it's subdued and its spirit is broken, the horse gentler, the horse whisperer. It's beautiful, and it's true. Of course, it's true. And so, mindfulness of breathing. We find this in the Pali Canon, in the Theravada. We find it in the Shravakayana altogether. It's often identified as a Shravakayana practice, a Hinayana practice. But it's not confined to that. It's not just for Hinayana people. So I'll just two very quick quotes. One from a Mahayana Sutra, the Kshitigarbha 10th Cycle Sutra, Mahayana. How do you correctly note with the power of mindfulness the in and out movement of the breath? You count them correctly. Count them correctly. So whether it's Buddhaghosa, whether it's a Sangha, whether it's, and the Prajnaparamita speaks of mindfulness of breathing. In Vajrayana, it speaks of mindfulness of breathing. In Vajrayana, the primary tantra of Manjushri, by resorting to mindfulness of the respiration, conceptualization is calmed. Since the mind is completely inflamed, fasten it firmly to one meditative object. So there it is, it's across the board, it's mindfulness of breathing. It's a very effective, proven over centuries and centuries, tens of thousands of yogis, finding, my mind was very conceptual, really out of control. Practice mindful breathing, that was the medicine that worked. All right. So now, to return there a little bit, I'm going to say some things, the phrasing is a bit different than before. I found it very, very important. So going back to the Pali Canon, you know I love to balance earth and sky. Earth, the Pali Canon, the foundational teachings, the Vravagyan, the sky, the infinite space of Dzogchen. But I was just looking at a Tibetan translation of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's great discourse on the 4 applications of mindfulness. And right from the beginning, when he's talking about the close application of mindfulness to the body, he goes right to mindfulness of breathing. And the way he starts, you've heard it before, right now, I would really invite you to listen to this as if for the first time. I just read it a couple of days ago. And that is, okay, now you are the practitioner here. So now sit yourself down in a meditative posture. And then he says in Tibetan, translation from the Pali, Tempa kachokte neso. Direct your mindfulness in front of you and rest. Now that's so simple. He says it again in Anapanasati Sutta, the Mindfulness of Breathing Sutra. Again and again and again. Place your mindfulness in front of you. Where your nose isn't in front of you, it's still on you. In front of you means in front of your whole physical presence here. It means in the space in front of you. Place your mindfulness in the space in front of you. And then he speaks of simply attending to the breath, noting whether it's long or short, which means attending to the rhythm of the breath. So this is a point I haven't said in these words before, but I see no other way than this for this to be accurate. You're placing your mindfulness in front of you, which means you're not placing your mindfulness on your body. Your body's here, and this is in front of you. What's in front of you is space. In other words, you're having an out-of-body experience. For the moment, what you attend to is reality, and what reality is, you're having an out-of-body experience, especially when the samadhi gets strong. You're placing awareness outside of your body in space. What space? This space, the intervening space. This is not physical space. Because when I look over at Michelle's shirt there, I'm seeing the colors, but the colors over there, and the spaces in between, the colors that I see are not physical. They're not located in physical space. So I'm seeing something over there that's not in physical space. Then between those appearances and where I am, that space is the space of awareness. And what's the space of awareness? It's the substrate. So you're placing your mindfulness in space. But then you are effortlessly, frankly, you don't have to try to feel your body, right? You don't have to try. You don't have to try to feel the body breathing in and out. And a tiny bit of effort to notice whether the breath, in-breath, out-breath is long or short. So you're placing your mindfulness in the space in front of you. And then peripherally, as Dupan Lama Kama said the other day, as if out of the corner of your eye. Remember saying that? Peripheral. And I've been using the word peripheral. So we've been saying the same things. I'm just more fluent in English. But corner of the eye is perfectly good. It's peripheral. Out of the corner of your eye as a secondary attentiveness, you are noting the flow in and out flow of the breath, but just the duration. You're not attending, looking at the sensations in the body. You're placing mind outside of the body, right? So introspectively, samprajanya, introspectively, you're reflexively noting the sensations within the body that indicate the in and out flow of the breath, but it's secondary, and primarily you're resting in space. It's different, isn't it? But that actually runs through all of the 16 phases of mindfulness of breathing, because the first 4 are shamatha, mindfulness of breathing, but you're placing awareness there, not here. And then after that, the next 12 stages are all vipassana. In the background is the breathing. In the foreground, you're really investigating mental states, mental processes. It's still called mindfulness of breathing, but that's in the background. And what you're really looking into is the impermanence, the dissatisfaction, the non-self nature of all the mental phenomena that are arising. And 16 phases, you're not. So this is quite important, this. Mindfulness of breathing. If we consider, you've all had plenty of time to experience suffering, right? Tomorrow, on occasion? Yeah, I thought so. Is she? Once in a while, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, me too. I'm older than maybe everybody here. I think I am now. I'm a senior guy. No, Gachi, I'm sorry. No, I think Gachi. No, you're still younger than me. Yeah, I checked. She's a whippersnapper. She's the spring chicken. Have you ever experienced any suffering that was not either in your body or your mind? I've seen things that I don't find pleasant, but that's not the same as physical pain. I've heard things that don't sound pleasant, really loud noises, but that's not the same. Or a taste, I can spit it out. A taste that's really unpleasant, I spit it out. But the pain in the body you can't get away from so easily. And then, of course, there's pain, there's dukkha that's purely mental. Sadness, despair, depression, so on. The locus of our dukkha is in the body, body and mind, or sometimes one or the other. When you're placing your awareness in the space in front of you, you've stepped out of your body. The body still rises up to meet you. But if you're not attending to it, not deliberately giving your attention to it, then whatever's taking place in the body is not as harsh, not as intense, as if you're gazing right at it. When William James says, for the moment what we attend to is reality, we can take that flat. I mean, I've quoted it many, many times. But another way we can gloss that is whatever we attend to, we reify. And it becomes real for us, even if it's not real at all. We can attend to something that's completely concocted by our imagination. I'm sure he meant this. That was his intention when he did that. And that's his personality and blah, blah, blah. And oh, he really pisses me off. Well, what's really pissing off is your own mental afflictions. That's what's really pissing you off. But then if you gave right into your mental afflictions, if you're really experiencing them, appropriating them, man, they can really hurt. Anxiety, resentment, contempt, hatred, jealousy. Appropriate them, they can really, really hurt. Really, really hurt. So to my mind, that's where all of our pain lies. In the mind and or in the body. But in mindfulness of breathing, the Buddha is inviting us, in our close application of mindfulness to the body, to view the body as if from outside. He said, review your body as a body, not as you. If you're fat, don't think I'm fat. It's just a body that's fat. If your body is not attractive, don't think I'm ugly. If your body's really old, you don't have to think I'm old. Your mind has been here for countless eons in the past. Just getting reconfigured by the same stream. So you're all old souls. So mindfulness of breathing, there it is. And then on that basis, then we have, following this magnificent text that Dupa Mama Karma has been teaching, and I've read all of it up to where he's going to begin in March, page 165, I think it is. But there's a long section on settling the mind in its natural state, and then a magnificent section on shamatha without a support, shamatha without a sign, without an objective referent. And he emphasized and cites one source after another. All of his citations are 5-star golden, magnificent sources. There's not one that's kind of shabby or mediocre. They're all superb. Mahasiddhas, Tantras, Buddhist teachings, and so forth and so on. But on the basis of settling body, speech, and mind, especially the mind in natural state, then once again, you're viewing your mind as if from outside of your mind. You're not viewing the mind from inside the mind. It's like going to a zoo. You view the lions on this side, not where they are, right? You're resting in awareness. And from that stillness of awareness, you're having an out-of-mind experience. You have an in-mind experience when you're appropriating everything that comes along. I'm feeling really tired. I'm really grumpy. I'm really irritable today. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety. I'm so depressed. Ay, 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 ay. We're appropriating everything, where there's not even a paper width of difference between the emotion, the desire, the thought, the memory, the fantasy, the hope, the fear. There is no difference. There's no space between these activities of the mind and our own awareness, our own identity. Then you're captured. You are going to the zoo and jumping into the lion's pit to observe the lions. Not a good idea. And so resting in the stillness of awareness, whatever comes up, and I've now read 165 pages or so, he must have used the word relax maybe 50 or 100 times. Just do this, just whatever comes up, just observe its essential nature and relax. Negative thoughts come up. That's okay. Observe the negative thoughts and relax. Sadness comes up. That's okay. Observe the sadness and relax. And he's using a word very crucial, and it's not so clearly translated. I wouldn't know what it means if I relied on the English translation, because the translator, who's generally very good, it's term ngo, which means essential nature. He translated it as entity, and I'm not sure that's really clear to people. It wouldn't be to me, but I know the Tibetan, so I know what it means. The essential nature of the mind, essential nature of consciousness, is luminosity and cognizance. That's the essential nature. The manifest nature is, oh, I was thinking about my mother, I was thinking about that, I was remembering that miserable situation. That's with all the clothing of different mental states and processes that are uniquely yours. Those are your memories, not anybody else's memory. How do you know? By their manifest nature. But your memory, the essential nature of your memories is the same as the essential nature of your memories. They're just memories. We view memories as memories, and not as my memories, or me, or I. And so moving through this, it was very interesting now that I've read everything in between. Long presentation of settling the mind. Brilliant, really brilliant. Big emphasis on whatever thoughts come up pertaining to the past, don't follow them. He's saying, don't think them. When he says don't follow them, if you're thinking them, the referent of your attention, the focus of your attention is on the referent of the thought. Oh, I remember this a long time ago. And boom, you're back in the past. It doesn't exist any longer. Thoughts about the future comes up. Don't follow them, which means don't think about the future. Because then you're focusing on something else that doesn't exist, a future that hasn't happened yet. And then even thoughts pertaining to the present. No, don't think those either. In other words, he's saying, don't think anything at all. Now here's where we need to bring out a sharp knife, because this could become real stupid real quick. And that is, see for yourself, especially those of you in full-time retreat, do you really need to think at all? Grocery list, making dinner, making lunch, cleaning your room, going to the toilet, going for a walk. Do you really need to think at all? I find it fascinating in the Pali Canon. It said, first of all, in the Mahayana, the Buddhist mind is absolutely non-conceptual. Absolutely non-conceptual. Dhammakaya never thinks. It's never a conceptual mind, ever. That's it. Purely perceptual, non-conceptual. In the Pali Canon, I haven't heard that statement, but reading a good bit of it, at least a fair amount of it, and the Buddha is walking along and he says, and the thought occurred. He didn't say, I thought. A thought occurred. As in the case of after 6 years of austerities, ruining his health, restoring his health, and you recall. And then the thought occurred. I remembered achieving the first jhana spontaneously, when I was a youth. The thought occurred, might that be the way to enlightenment? To re-achieve shamatha, which he'd lost through all the austerities. And then the thought occurred, and then an echo thought came up. Yep. Then he achieved shamatha all over again. And then, how long did it take for a little lamb to flick its tail? A short time, yeah? That's how long it took to achieve enlightenment. After 3 countless eons, and re-achieving shamatha, then he went off to the Bodhi tree and said, I'm not getting up until I'm finished. Well, he didn't get up until he was finished. So settling the mind as natural state, big emphasis on don't follow after thoughts. And you'll find more and more, somebody probably already nailed this months ago maybe, that you don't actually have to think anything at all. But thoughts don't cease. The thoughts don't cease. But the thoughts can start coming up as aids to your practice. So you're getting hungry, and a thought comes up. You still have some dal and rice left, and there's a bit of veggies. The thought comes up. That was enough. You don't have to have a conversation, just dal, rice, there's some veggies there. It just comes up, and then it's gone. It's like like you're one of those old folks 2 generations ago that sits out in a rocking chair on your porch and watches the people walk by and so forth. Some of them may have really good suggestions, but you don't date them. You don't jump up and give them a hug or walk with them. You don't, whatever. They just walk by. And so I'll go step back a little bit. Mindfulness of breathing. I've read Buddhaghosa carefully. He gives different methods of counting. Asanga gives different methods of counting. Abhidhamma Kosha, Vasubandhu, different methods of counting. And then you find, then there's Vajra counting, Vajra breath counting in Vajrayana. Kamtu Rinpoche addresses counting in the Vajrayana context. But as Sangha points out in the presentation I translated years ago, it's been published by now, beautiful presentation in the Shravaka context, there are all these different ways of counting, some of them quite elaborate, that really keep your nose to the grindstone. But he said, people with sharp faculties, they don't want to do it. They don't want to count breaths. They may really like mindfulness of breathing, they don't like counting. It clutters. It clutters. It's like going to hear a world-class pianist and then bringing a metronome with you. Or counting the bars. Well, you can if you want. But if you're really attending closely, why do you count bars? Why don't you just enjoy the music? And so, but for many, many people, for centuries now, counting the breaths has been very helpful. Lama Karma said 7 breaths. 1 count at the end of each inhalation. Count. But between that and the end of the next inhalation, have only 1 thought. 2. 3. 4. In between count silent. In other words, they take a lot of thoughts that would jumble in and compress a lot of thoughts into 1 thought. 1, 2, and so forth. How long if you like counting, you find it helpful, to subdue the mind, to get the mind to calm down, be able to maintain continuity of mindfulness. How long generally, unless you just don't want to do it at all. Maybe you can do great without it. That's true for some people. I would suggest this. Many of you are familiar with the 9 stages leading to shamatha. Technically, I'll give you the right translation, because it doesn't say 9 stages. Semnepe tap gu, 9 methods for stilling the mind. First method, second, third, fourth, 9th. Now you've achieved shamatha. 9 methods for stilling the mind. The first one is connect, jokpa. And the 4th one is nyewar jokpa, connect closely. Connect closely. So a silly image came to mind this morning when I was thinking about that. There's all kinds of dancing, right? And back in the 60s, I remember they would just swing out and twirl around and swing. Remember that in the movies? But then there's the romantic dancing where the couple really get very close and there's not much air between them and they're moving with the music, but they're very close. They're kind of moving totally together as if one person, right? It can be very sweet, very beautiful actually. That's a nyewar jokpa. Close placement, close connection, closely linking, like 2 lovers dancing slowly together, just loving being together and not wanting to stray off. Because they just love the feeling closeness with each other. It's a sweet, sweet image, isn't it? That's nyewar jokpa, where you can say you love your object, or you're so drawn to it, you so enjoy it, find it meaningful, that an hour goes by, maybe even 2 hours go by, and you don't disengage from your dancing partner. Your attention, your mindfulness doesn't split off and go wandering around the dance hall, but remains linked. Closely linked, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, always being present. And you've just reached stage 4 out of 9, but that's a base camp within shamatha. Once you no longer completely lose the object, it's called coarse excitation. You're not meditating, you're just sitting in there with a wandering mind for 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever. So I think that's a really good criterion. If you want to count breaths, it's a preliminary phase, which is splintering your attention between the breath and the counting. There's no doubt about that. But it's profit and loss. You get more profit than loss. By the time that you are no longer disengaging, maybe you're doing 8, 9 hours a day, 1 hour sessions, 2 hour, and when you're in the flow, then you don't need to count anymore. From that point on, it would be extra baggage you don't need to bring. Now let's move over to back to settling the mind in its natural state. When he's speaking about it as the third phase of settling, then the emphasis is don't follow after those thoughts. And this phrase, it's so inviting, so sweet, so gentle, is sustain your mindfulness just enough not to be distracted. Like right now. Like right now. Rest your awareness in the present moment. Without my even having to say, look at this or look at that. What's already there, let's do it again. You're already aware of being aware. You didn't have to add that on. That was before you add anything else on. And anything else, as I'm looking over at Joe, that takes some effort. I could be straying over to Michelle or over to the photos there. Yeah, Joe. That takes a little bit of effort. But awareness of awareness takes no effort whatsoever because it's a given. It's like an inheritance. It's just always there. Because you can remember having had that experience, which means you were aware of being aware at the time. And that's really important because that's effortless. And when you're not doing anything else, you're not attending to this, you're not distracted by this, you're not falling into drowsiness that way, you're not agitated this way, you're not thinking about the future or the past. When you're not doing anything else, but just resting in the present moment, what's left when you're not doing anything else is not oblivion. It's awareness of awareness. Just don't be distracted from that. That's so sweet, isn't it? It doesn't sound hard. And it's not hard. For 1 hour it may be hard, but for the first minute it's not hard, the second minute's not hard, third minute not hard. It's never hard. It's just that we forget. We just forget. So it's really sweet. And then I've just read this masterful presentation of having other different methods of shamatha with a support. A pebble, a stone, a Buddha image, and et cetera, et cetera. It goes to the breath as well. But then he goes to the grand finale of the preparations to the first yoga. All this was preparation. Everything, the first many pages, 160 or so. All of that was preparation. But then when he gets to shamatha without a basis, without a support, he said, everything came before that. You remember all those other methods? They're just a preparation for this. This is the real deal. This is the murji. This is the main practice. This is now shamatha in the Mahamudra context. It is Mahamudra. And what is it? It's just resting in awareness of awareness and not doing anything else. He doesn't at this point even speak about don't follow thoughts of this or that. He just said, just rest and don't be distracted. One would have to have a lot of encouragement to think that's not a complete waste of time. But we have hundreds of years of Mahasiddhas, Tilopa, Saraha, and the list goes on and on, the great Kagyupa masters, centuries and centuries of great masters saying, this is it. This is the main practice of Mahamudra. Dujom Rinpoche, in another text I translated, give different methods. Focus on this, focus on that. And he said, or you can just rest your awareness without grasping onto anything. Like right now. And that's it. That's enough. Doesn't that sound inviting? Because when I first learned shamatha, as inspired as I was by it, and saying, now visualize the Buddha image. Man, I sucked at it. Just couldn't do it. And that if this is what it takes, maybe I'm just screwed because I was born in California and raised there for the first 20 years or so. Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. My knickers would get twisted up so much. Trying so hard just to maintain that mental image. Just... And then along comes Mahamudra. Oh, there's another way, and that's for me. That's for people like me. So we moved into this practice of settling the mind in its natural state, and once again, lo and behold, now straight Mahayana tradition, Indo-Tibetan Mahamudra Dzogchen, again and again and again and again. You sit down. If you can be in the 7-point Vajrayana posture, that's great. Whatever, place your awareness in the space in front of you. Same thing. From the Pali Canon to the teachings of Mahasiddhas and the Mahamudra and Dzogchen tradition, place your awareness in front of you. What's that? The substrate. What's that? The space of awareness. We so often think, and are reinforced by the delusional assumptions of modern neuroscience, that all your thoughts, emotions, images, experiences are all inside your head. It's like putting you in prison. They don't mean to, but they're still putting you in prison. To tell that all of your mental life, your hopes, fears, memories, everything, they're inside tissue, inside your brain. Number one, it's nuts. It's like saying, where's the square root of -2 in your brain? Come on. That's a stupid question. And there's no intelligent answer because it's a stupid question. Where in physical space do your thoughts reside? It's a stupid question. But because they're materialists and they think the mind is simply a function of the brain, then they say, okay, they stuff you in this little tiny cavern on top of your neck. And you're stuck in there. I have so many thoughts roaming around in my head. Show me a thought that's ever roamed around in a head. It's really a suffocating vision, and it's commonplace. It's everywhere. Popular media, education, science, neuroscience, psychology. It's not real. It's only in your head. That's what's not real, is if there's anything in your head apart from protein, fat, water, and electricity. That's what's inside your head. Want to do it again? Fat, protein, water, and electricity. There's nothing else inside your head apart from that, in very complex configurations. Everything else beyond that is neuromythology. And not just stupid, it's really destructively stupid. So here, once again, we're placing awareness in front of us. We're getting outside of the head. Very importantly, you're not trapped in there any longer. Your eyes are open. Even if it's a dark room, you still come out into space in front of you. And your mindfulness, now this is from Yangtang Rinpoche, in his short but brilliant presentation of Shamatha within Dzogchen, taking the mind as path, right? It's that method. But when I asked him, is this shamatha with a referent or without a referent? In other words, are you really attending to the thoughts, the memories, the images that arise in the mind, which will make it with a referent, with a sign, with a support? I'm seeing this thought, and there's another thought, and there's another thought, and by cracky, you're probably reifying them. Probably so. Or is it shamatha without a sign, without a referent, without directing your attention anywhere in terms of the main brunt, the main force of your attention? Are you attending it anywhere at all? Does it have a vector? Even to your thoughts, your emotions, memories? And the answer was, it's shamatha without a sign. You're noting the thoughts just enough not to be carried away by them. Just that. No more. With no interest. Was it a pleasant thought, unpleasant, virtuous, non-virtuous, mental affliction, virtuous, and so forth? No interest and no preference. Really crucial. This is revolutionary. Revolutionary. And how can you get away with that and not be a total dope, having no preference for virtuous thoughts over non-virtuous thoughts? Because you're not appropriating any of them. If you appropriate them, then appropriate good thoughts and don't appropriate bad thoughts. That's easy. But here, don't appropriate any thoughts at all, which means, as Gatrud Rinpoche told me years ago when I went to a very strict 6-month retreat, he said, whatever comes up, even if it's 1,000 Buddhas, they won't be able to help you. And if it's 1,000 devils, demons, maras, not be able to harm you. Any more than reflections in a mirror or images on a television can harm you. They can't. They're just empty. They're appearances and nothing more than that. So if you're resting in the naturally pure purity, primordial, pristine purity of your own awareness. What's that mean? The essential nature of your awareness, without all the coloration, configuration, and so forth. If you're resting in the essential nature of your awareness, which is just the sheer luminosity and sheer cognizance, nothing gets in there. Like nothing gets into distilled water. It's H2O and that's it. In that jug, there's only H2O. Everywhere else, there's chlorine, there's all kinds of things. But here, it's just H2O. When you're resting in the sheer luminosity and cognizance of your awareness, you have stepped out of your mind. You've stepped out going this way. Because your mind's here. That's where all your thoughts, feelings, emotions, mental afflictions are. Oh, what a zoo, what a zoo. But here you stepped out of the zoo. And from that stillness, from the safety of observing the lions way up here, or observing the koala bears. Oh, aren't they cute? But they're not my koala bears. They're just koala bears. Rest in that. That's where your mindfulness is placed. That's where your attention is. That's where your interest is. It's just in that sheer, unelaborated experience of being aware. And from that stillness, observe the motion of the mind just enough not to be carried away by it. Direct route to shamatha. That's a direct route. Yeah, I'll give this because it came up just recently in the last six weeks. You know, there's engineering and there's reverse engineering. When Thomas Edison was trying to make a commercially viable light bulb, he didn't invent the light bulb, but he ran through thousands of trials to make one that was commercially viable. He said, I will not spend any time inventing something that won't make me money. He was a real American. Tesla was a real European. All idealism. Europe at best. But Edison went after the money. But thousands of trials, because nobody had ever made a commercially viable light bulb before. And he found several thousand ways that don't work. And each one was a discovery. And then he found ways that work and made himself a lot of money. He became a very, very rich man, unlike Tesla, who died in poverty. He wanted to give everything away for free. Pretty much he did. That's forward engineering. Nobody's ever created one before. Do it yourself. If you're living in a place where nobody's ever achieved shamatha before, and all you have is some techniques for mindfulness of breathing, okay, what you have is a mind that's really messed up, completely inundated with the 5 obscurations. And so you have a whole mind with very pure mindfulness, very pure introspection, very pure concentration, very poor. I say, well, roll your sleeves up and get to work. Maybe I'll have to try 3,000 ways that don't work. But it's forward engineering, right? Because you're trying to achieve something you've never achieved before, not in your memory anyway. Forward engineering, right? You're trying to shape and polish and modify and improve a mind that's really dysfunctional. As I said 6 weeks ago, defective, seriously defective. That's why we can suffer even when there's nothing outside of us making us suffering. You can sit in a room all by yourself and make yourself miserable with no problem. We're very good at it, actually. Practice makes perfect. And so that's forward engineering. But reverse engineering is never having seen a light bulb in your life and then seeing one and turning the switch and it turns on. Wow, that's a light bulb. Wonder how it works. Because that's a light bulb. That really works. And then reverse engineering. Okay, it's got glass. I can let glass. It's got some filament. Okay, get filament. Got a vacuum. Okay, make a vacuum. There's a liquid source. Okay, and you take the end product and then you emulate the end product. Reverse engineering, right? The shamatha without a sign, taking the mind as a path, is reverse engineering. Because you're resting in the essential nature of the mind, which is the substrate consciousness. It's your closest approximation to the substrate consciousness. It's luminous and it's cognizant. Before it gets configured and adorned as a human mind, man's mind, woman's mind, and so forth and so on, and the substrate consciousness never moves. Appearances, all kind of appearances arise to it, which it illuminates. But it doesn't move off to them. Oh, there's something I like. Oh, there's something I don't like. Oh, I hope that happens. It doesn't do that. It rests in perpetual stillness, and all manner of appearances are illuminated by it, but it doesn't gravitate to them. It doesn't appropriate them. It doesn't merge with them. Like in the movie, say, oh, I can't get her off my mind. I can't get her off my mind. I just think about her all day long. I want to give that poor guy a hug. You're obsessed. I mean, you've lost your mind. Because it's totally fused with your image of this woman as if she's somehow going to make you happy. She can't even make herself happy. How can she make you happy? Pathetic, cognitively unintelligent. Sexual infatuation is a kind of delusion, of course. And so the reverse engineering of taking the mind as a path, you're resting in your best approximation of resting in the substrate consciousness. And just keep on approximating it better and better and better. And it will come in like a big fish coming up and swallowing a little fish. The substrate will come up and swallow your awareness. And then you'll be resting in substrate consciousness. You will not have achieved it. You'll have unveiled it because it was already there. So, to my mind, in this world we're living in now, with a degeneration that is unspeakably obvious, and the level of ADHD and confusion and chaos in people's minds and behavior, I think it would be a very rare individual that can forward engineer shamatha in this world. Very rare. Unless you've been living your whole life as a nomad, which are pretty much wiped out by the communists by now. And so, definitions of mindful introspection, I've given two definitive accounts, and I'll just tell you as a scholar, this is the bread and butter, this is the right arm and the left arm of developing samadhi, developing shamatha, mindfulness and introspection. Almost universally, they're misunderstood. In the modern Vipassana tradition, they completely misunderstand it. Introspection, sampajanya, is almost always mistranslated. I'm astonished by intelligent people. It's translated as awareness. That's bollocks. Something like clear comprehension. Bollocks. I have clear comprehension of arithmetic. That's not sampajanya. Full awareness. What's full awareness? I'm fully aware of my wristwatch. That's not sampajanya. It's not vigilance. Vigilance is a batter at the plate when a ball coming at 90 miles an hour is about to come over the plate. That's vigilance. That's not sampajanya. Almost all the translations are wrong. Even metacognition, I checked the definition this morning. You know the definition of metacognition? Thinking about thinking. Gosh, we're Neanderthals when it comes to the mind. When the Dalai Lama said modern psychology is still in kindergarten, he's being very generous. We can't even translate sampajanya because we don't have a term in English that corresponds to sampajanya. Well, Shantideva gives it to you, and the closest we have is introspection. But sometimes introspection is also translated as thinking about thinking. It's so primitive. And when I took that one course in cognitive psychology at Stanford, I was astonished. They never acknowledged the fact that there's such a thing as mental perception. Time it, that was only 1 page out of 2. Okay, but Machik Lepton, I got to give you Machik Lepton. You've heard it before. I want to hear it now as you've never heard it before. Because I gave you an analogy of counting the breath, right? And count, if you don't need it at all, fine. If you don't need it, you maintain ongoing flow without counting, cool, good. But if you keep on losing it, then bring in the counting, to keep in line. Machi Laptidharma, emanation of Yeshe Tsogyal. 12th century, latter half of the 11th century. Tightly focus, then loosely release. There is the mind's place of rest. Okay, I'm going to say some things again you haven't heard before. Hopefully not everything is just so old and boring. I would suggest this. There's a very strong and meaningful parallel between counting the breaths and no longer needing to count breaths, and this exercise of oscillation. Tightly focus, then loosely release. Tightly focus, loosely release. I say there's a very strong parallel there. And that is, we went directly to the brilliant section, about 10 pages or so, of Shamatha without a support in this Royal Seal of Mahamudra. He's already covered Machi Lepton's way back when he was talking about settling the mind as natural state. He's assuming you've kind of done that. Body, speech, and mind, you've settled in that natural state, and now you're ready to go around cross the finish line In the shamatha practice, based upon and infused with settling the mind in its natural state, you're now ready to finish what you started, with shamatha without the support. All the other methods, they're for this one. This is the nguji, this is the main one. But back then, settling the mind in its natural state, he quotes Machi Laptun, as does Pinchen Rinpoche and many, many others. A very famous quote. Tightly focused and loosely release, or loosely, what was it? Loosely release. It's really brilliant. I'm going to be really silly for a very short time. Direct current and alternating current. Edison versus Tesla. Direct current is just that. But it runs out of steam really quickly, so you have to have another booster down the road, 300 yards away, and that jacks it up again. And then you have to have another, because it peters out. That sheer relentless push of direct voltage can't be sustained. You have to have all these resurgent towers all over the place. But Edison was completely committed to it. And Tesla invented alternating current. And that's all of electricity everywhere now is all following Tesla. Because Edison was a dead end. He committed to it because that's where his money was. Alternating current. Well, you don't need all those boosters. You've seen power lines go across 500 miles of desert. They don't have boosters all over the place. It's alternating current. This is alternating. Just pushing, visualizing a Buddha, and I'll push and push and push. Pooped out. Lama, give me some blessings. I'm really wiped out here. Okay, thank you, Lama. I'm pooped out again. Lama, more blessings, please. Direct current shamatha is really exhausting. Even if it's just resting just in that awareness, even then, you get really boring. Like, you're going to just drift off into spacing out, or just being absent-minded, or just having no thoughts. Like that. This is alternating current. Arouse and relax. Arouse and relax. It's very widely known. Mahamudra, Dzogchen is everywhere. What I haven't seen, but which I found immensely helpful, is number one, of course, you can set your own rhythm. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, anything you like. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever you like, it's your choice. They don't tell you how fast that rhythm should be, that oscillation. But the one that the body is giving you, is not your heartbeat, it's too fast. It's your breathing, of course. And the time of inhalation is naturally time of arousal. Every time you inhale, you're affirming your life. Every time you're exhaling, you're telling, I'm ready for death. Because even a corpse that just got a bullet in its head can still breathe out. But it can't breathe in. Every time you breathe in, you're once again saying, I'm alive, I'm still here. When the breath flows in without manipulating it in any way, that's why you want the primer of mindfulness of breathing. The breath flows in, now your awareness is here in space in front of you. And now peripherally, where your awareness is resting in space and mindfulness is honing in on subjective experience of luminosity and cognizance. Like right now, place your awareness in front of you. And just be aware of the raw experience that your awareness is illuminating and your awareness knows. And so when the breath flows in, I'm not saying you're breathing in because you're not. The breath is just flowing in. It's quite easy to be non-conceptual when you're breathing in. And then the breath flows out. And that's a time when the little gremlins of conceptualization often come like cockroaches from under the refrigerator. They come creeping in during exhalation. But then, just release. Alternating current. The inhalation overcomes laxity. The exhalation overcomes excitation. It's brilliant. And what I would suggest is, as with counting, up to stage 4, when you're no longer parted from that ongoing flow of being aware, whether breathing in or breathing out. It's homogeneous. When you're no longer being parted, then now you really go effortless. Because the preceding phase, that was still a bit of doing. still doing something with your mind. But once you're in that flow, then and you're not doing anything, but you are being aware of being aware in a continuous flow. That's how you achieve shamatha. So do that until you achieve stage 4. Or, if you like the simpler model, which I like, the 4 mindfulnesses. The first one is you're in gear, right? That is, you can, this is crucially important, you can be explicitly, vividly aware simultaneously of your awareness being unmoving. I mean, for 5 seconds. The awareness is unmoving. Pepperoni, please. Mow the grass now. What? It's like being clairvoyant in a room full of idiots. Because these thoughts are disjointed, they have no meaning, they have no connection. They're just coming up like popcorn out of a popcorn popper. But there's no meaningful way in which you could say, I thought that. Because they just came up, like a person walking by your porch. They just come up. And I don't know if that has a thought any owner, but I didn't do it. And it's not mine. I just witnessed it. And then you see, that didn't move me in the slightest. Make that veggie instead. Blah, 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 blah. Blah. Blah, 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 blah. Don't prefer silence. Because these will turn into aids in the path, and these will turn into emanations of Dharmakaya. They'll turn into Nimanakayas. So don't even prefer the mind to just shut up completely, but don't think a single one of them. And when you can have not only 5 seconds of just seeing a thought come up like a stray dog that just walks by and carries on, but not invited into your house and you don't feed it. And then 5 seconds and 10 seconds go by and you remain still, and another disconnected, stray thought comes up, or image, memory, whatever, and you don't move. And when you can do that, sustain that type of ongoing flow of mindfulness, unperturbed, undisturbed, and whether it's a nasty thought or a pleasant, virtuous, non-virtuous, it doesn't matter. It's like a whole bunch of food you're not eating. There's some rotten food, there's some tasty food, there's some junk food. It doesn't matter because you're not eating it. So it doesn't matter. Or whether there's no food on that, that rotary belt or whatever, it doesn't matter. No food, good food, bad food. If you're not eating it, it doesn't matter. And you're not eating the thoughts. And when you can do that for a sustained period, then you can stop the oscillation. It's done its work. And you're not getting bored, you're not getting spaced out. That's quite marvelous. So you see the parallel. That would be the second mindfulness. The second mindfulness. First one is, yeah, I can do it, I did it. Stillness and movement simultaneous. But that long stretch of the road of the second mindfulness, before you go into mindfulness devoid of mindfulness, that's a long stretch of the road. It'll be from stage 4 to stage 9 or so. That one is just becoming more and more familiar. More and more familiar. Like wearing a pair of shoes until they're totally your shoes and nobody else's, because they've molded themselves to your foot. Become more and more effortless, more and more continuous. You're just resting in that ongoing flow of stillness, and whatever comes up is not, you're not thinking it. You're not appropriating it, and it doesn't move you. Not with desire or revulsion, not with hope or fear. And all the activity, it's not just thoughts. It's just time and again, all hopes about the future, all fears about the future, all the evaluations, I think it's going well, oh, maybe it's not going well. All of that is junk. He said that all of this is the contrivances, and remain completely uncontrived. Now, a crucial point here, and then I'll probably stop soon, probably. As Gyatra Rinpoche told me years ago in strict retreat, whatever comes up can't harm you or help you. And have no hope for a good outcome and no fear of bad outcome. And you remember what I asked him? What about all those prayers to the Lama? Lama, please bless me, grant me blessings, achieve cities. Lama, please remove all obstacles. What about that? Isn't that hope? And he said, yeah, that's between sessions. Between sessions, sure. Rev up your motivation, call for the blessings, do the 4 empowerments and so forth between sessions. But during sessions, stop it. No hope, no fear, no longing, no desire, no nothing. Rest and be completely satisfied to rest there. So for people among us, where the body is just not such a friendly partner, in various ways. I know, people send me reports. I know the body's not ever so friendly. It'll count on it. It'll get less friendly as you get older. But where there's things that might be mended with some kind of treatment or yoga or pranayama or a change of diet or what have you, in between sessions, whatever ails your body. And likewise, if you have some niggling resentment against somebody, in between sessions, bring out the big guns, loving kindness, guru yoga, whatever, bring out the big, to overcome mental afflictions that are plaguing you. In between sessions, sure, hit them with an antidote. That's good. In between sessions, if you need to receive some kind of therapy or this or that to alleviate some of the, that's good, do it. In between sessions. But during sessions, have no preference about whatever sensation you're feeling in the body. It's a skill to be cultivated, but you can. It's learning how to not appropriate the pain in your head, the pain in your gut, whatever ails you. It's going to still rise, but you don't have to go out and dance with it. It's arising where you are not attending. You're attending to the sheer luminosity and cognizance of awareness. Or you're resting awareness in space in front of you. But you're not attending to it and therefore reifying whatever's going on in your body. And you're not attending to or reifying the depression, the anxiety, the disappointment, and so forth, all this stuff that can arise in the mind. They'll still arise, but you don't have to dance with it. You don't have to appropriate it. There's none of that in the sheer essential nature of awareness. There's none of that. All the garbage of the mind, all the samsaric taints, contaminations of the mind, they're not in the distilled awareness of sheer luminosity and cognizance. There are no emotions in pure awareness. Bliss may come right out of the center of it, okay, that's something different. But happy about this, happy about that, it doesn't get in there. So in between sessions, don't even have a wish to alter what's happening in the mind. Not even the wish. It's like, not my problem. It's not my mind anyway. It's just in the near neighborhood. But I've stepped out. And this isn't my body, and these are not my sensations. Any more than the sounds I hear are my sounds. They're just sounds. So in between sessions, a radical shift. And this is absolutely crucial. All hope and fear, striving, etc., that the mind will change in some way. That it will turn out well. Or they say, that's not how you achieve shamatha. You don't achieve shamatha by hoping a whole lot that it will happen. And you don't miss shamatha by being afraid it won't happen. Especially in this reverse technology, reverse engineering. You rest in awareness. And anybody who didn't know better might think, well, that's just a waste of time. You're just sitting there like a bump on a log. It happens to be conscious. Big deal. Except people have done it. People like Padmasambhava, Sadaha, Tilopa, Milarepa, and so forth. And they're saying this is the bonanza. Terrifically important, transformative. But you're not doing the transformation. It's rising up to meet you. So I want to just tell you what's in the notes because you can read them. There's only 2 pages. But we've heard in the Lama Karma a lot of emphasis, very rightly of course, on the tremendous value of being able to sit in the 7-point Padotana posture, which includes the Vajra Asana. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this for hundreds and hundreds of years. Marpa and so many of the great yogis of the past have said this is terrifically beneficial. And Lama Karma was asked, what if you can't do it? You just can't be comfortable, or you can't do it at all. He said, then find another posture. What if all you can do is lie down? He said, well, then you lie down. It won't be as fast, But yeah, do that rather than don't meditate at all. And of course what he just said is true. And here's something else is true. Which is faster? Lying in comfort in a supine position, clear, still, relaxed, or sitting in the full lotus in agony? Which will get you to shamatha faster? The supine's faster. It may not be fast as if you had another body, but you don't have another body. This is the only one you got. So either you can be comfortable in the cross-legged position or you can't. If you can be, hallelujah, great. But if you can't be, it's not the fastest way. And maybe sitting on a chair is. Or maybe it's a designer chair. Or maybe it's supine with pillows, under the knees to raise your knees and so forth and so on. But that's the fastest way for you. Just like we can't say Dzogchen is the best of all dharmas, because it's not the best for everybody. For some people it's boring or silly. Then it's not the best for them. Ganden Tungpa Rinpoche was coming here this summer, I understand. He said, I don't like the notion that there's 9 stages and this is better, 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 and this is worse, 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 worse. No, this is the best for some people. And this is the best for some people. This is the great perfection for some people. And each one's a great perfection for someone. Otherwise, why would the Buddha teach them if it wasn't the best for someone? Why do we waste his time? Oh, you're only Michelle, you're from LA. Okay, I'll give you the second rate, because I don't really like LA much. But, oh, you're from San Francisco. Okay, San Francisco, I'll give you the good stuff. But the LA people, yeah. That never happens, of course. He's giving the best for everyone according to their own abilities. So that's a crucial point, and I emphasize deep into the ground of the Vajra essence, rest your body without modifying it. That is, don't go like that, like a corpse in a charnel ground. I can do that. I can do that. And probably better to be a straight corpse than a crooked corpse. I think it's called Shavasana, corpse position. That was kind of a big hint, wasn't it? Corpse position, well, this is what he's saying. This is a perfectly good posture for resting in Rikpa. All right, so there's that. Yeah, the last one, you can read it, you'll understand it. All appearances are 6 sessions. When you're looking out at the appearances, that's the portal to samsara. I like this, I don't like that. I hope this, oh, I fear that. Don't like this. That's mine. That's yours, but I want it. Whenever you're looking out at appearances, that's your portal to the whole of samsara. Looking at appearances. Whenever you're looking right into this sheer luminosity and cognizance, that's the portal to Rikpa. It's nowhere else. You'll never find Rikpa anywhere else than just resting right in awareness. And the veils lift, the veils lift, veils lift. There's Rikpa waiting for you all along. Look inward, you're looking in the direction of the ultimate nature of the mind, said the Dalai Lama, is nirvana. The emptiness of a location, origin, location, destination, the emptiness of inherent nature of your mind is nirvana. But you don't see that by looking outwards at the brain or anything else. Look inwards, that's where nirvana is to be found. Look inwards, that's where pristine awareness is to be found. Look outwards into this whole field of impure appearances. Welcome back to samsara. So every time while sitting on a cushion, if you find your mind is strayed off to appearances, you've just voted one more time for samsara. I'm finding nirvana a little bit boring, but this samsara looks pretty interesting. Let's give it a whirl. And you spin the roulette wheel on the great casino and see how it turns out for you. Okay, 2 short quotes and we're finished. I know I went on, but I think it's important. It's only every 6 weeks after all. The Royal Seal of Mahamudra, I've retranslated 2 sections that I love. Here it is, fresh translation. He writes, furthermore, it has been said that by cultivating samadhi, craving for the allures of the desire realm, not just sensual pleasures, but things like wealth, that's not a sensual pleasure. Look at my bank account, baby. Power, prestige, those are the allures. Many people orient their whole lives to success, which they count in terms of wealth, power, and prestige. Well, it loses all of its taste. It's like offering straw to a tiger. They just have no appeal anymore. No appeal. Sensual pleasures. I see that would give me sensual pleasure, but compared to what I found within, this is not even worth turning my head. There's nothing. It goes nowhere. It just has a big sign over it. I will always prove unsatisfying to you. Why would I be attracted to that? And so craving for the allures of the desire realm is averted, points of uncertainty severed. The mind becomes crystal clear, like a sharp knife, cuts through uncertainties. Extrasensory perception and samadhi arise. Great compassion is born. Isn't that fascinating? Taking the mind as the path, mindful breathing, and then achieve samadhi, and great compassion arises. Well, of course it would. You've tapped into the lodestone, into the mother lode of well-being. And you see all these people around you, 8 billion human beings, let alone 20 billion animals. And they're all scurrying around looking for happiness. And they're bringing the source of happiness with them. Animals can't help it. But human beings, oh, she would make me happy. I'm not happy here, but I bet I'd move it over there. I heard it's really nice. They call it Happy Valley. It must be very nice because it's happy. And feeling such compassion in a very gentle way, the gentlest way, but the words are not gentle. It's like being surrounded by idiots. And you're all on a fool's errand. You feel compassion for those who are so cognitively unintelligent, ethically unintelligent, attentionally unintelligent, and scrambling around without a clue. Even if they're wannabe presidents and don't have a clue how to find happiness. Not a clue. And looking in all the wrong directions. And sure, that's going to turn out well. Great compassion support. Authentic reality is seen. You're primed, you're poised, you're so close with samadhi. Cutting through to the actual nature of reality is so close. And one is able to establish disciples on the path to enlightenment. Well, we ordinary folks, we can help people in all kinds of ways. But without having samadhi to actually effectively lead people to the path of irreversible transformation, very difficult. And many other sublime qualities are developed. So just read that one paragraph. You'll have it in the notes that are sent to you. And just read that. And this is not believing in this or that or the other thing. It's not joining a club. You don't have to be rich or poor, male or female. How could anybody not want to cultivate samadhi? And this is rooted in the Prajnaparamita Sutra. It wasn't something Kamturama made up. He gave the source right after this. These are terrific qualities. That's just samadhi. That's not even wisdom yet. And then final quote, and then we're done. Again, my translation. Thus, simply without letting the sentry of mindfulness and introspection be distracted or deluded, from that very perspective, without deliberately blocking or sustaining the arising of thoughts, but without falling under their influence, whatever arises, while recognizing their own essential nature, focus right there. In that way, without exerting effort, free from rejecting and accepting, if you familiarize yourself with focusing on their essential nature, the sheer presence. Essential nature means the sheer presence. There's a thought, there's an emotion, there's a memory, there's an imagination, there's a hope, there's a fear. But without going, a fear of what? Without going into content, the manifest nature, just recognizing a thought as a thought, an emotion as an emotion, sensation as a sensation, awareness as awareness. If you familiarize yourself with focusing on their essential nature, eventually, thoughts will inflict no harm. Conceptualization itself would become the main practice, because all the thoughts arising as your aids. And then we'll be seen, I just read this a day or two ago, as your awareness is like the sun. The thoughts that arise are like the rays of the sun. They don't disturb the sun. Or your awareness is like an ocean, and the thoughts that comes up are like the waves on the ocean. They arise from the ocean, subside back into it. And that's your practice. You're seeing all of these with pure vision, pure awareness. So conceptualization itself will become the main practice. So this is a very profound, crucial point. That's what I was able to offer you from 6 weeks of meditating and just see what comes up. I didn't do any study. But I find each of these points very helpful. And if somebody could come out with a cookie cutter, American, like a gingerbread man, I'd be one of the gingerbread men. I'm just really ordinary American. So if it helps me, then probably help a lot of people like me. Très ordinaire. I'm extraordinarily ordinary. You may not believe me. You may think I'm joking. I'm not. Really ordinary. But I do find Dharma helpful. So I continue, because there's nothing else to do. Let's come back at 4:15, and then we'll come back, shower blessings. There'll be no self-generation, so this is open to anybody, whether here or listening by way of the internet. Back to shower of blessings. And hopefully that will fuel up your tanks like the camel that gets water only after 6 months during the winter. They can go for 6 months with no water. So you can go for 6 weeks. But of course you have Lama Karma coming soon. And wow, the next section coming, he's going to give the pranayama teachings on the 29th. They should be quite interesting. One lecture. But then after that, he just received a message this morning. At my request, he's going to go back to the text and pick up right there in shamatha, in the first yoga, and weave totally his own experience into it, mix them like milk with water. So he's happy to do that. But I received a message this morning from Kunchola that on his initiative, hallelujah, he's going to go 3 times, like 3 weeks, lecture in shamatha, and then go into the 6 bardos, and especially bardo of dreaming, using a text by Dujum Rinpoche. And then back to 3 shamatha, and then back to the 6 bardos again. So he's a 3-star Michelin restaurant of Dharma. He really is. He's the real deal. 20 years in retreat. And he's 3 years younger than I and looks like about 30 years younger than I. I think that turned out well for him. Because I don't think I look a day over 72 myself. In any case, when you're with him, you listen to him, you watch how he interacts. This is a person who's lived in Dharma for decades. And he's speaking from his experience, adorned with things he's heard from Lama Manjopa and so forth, but so much just flowing out from his own experience. This is an incredibly choice opportunity. And so timely, right when I'm stepping out, because this is all I'm willing to do once every 6 weeks and respond to bi-monthly reports from the yogis. So I'm kind of leaving people on something of a starvation diet. And then comes in this great yogi, and I step aside, here. And so we're very fortunate that he's stepping in when I've stepped out. And sooner or later, I'll probably step back in again, unless I step out entirely. But we'll see. So that's it. So let's come back in at 8:15.